Welcome to A Brief History of Mystery. This week I'm going to be talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson and some of the tweets he's been sending out this week. So, not to be mixed up with the boxer, this guy is an astrophysicist and generally a science celebrity. Now I quite like that because I don't mind having a science celebrity, and unlike Bill Nye the Science Guy, he is actually a scientist, which is kind of nice. And unlike Bill Nye the Science Guy, he is actually a celebrity. And unlike Bill Nye the Science Guy, he is actually a scientist who got his degree at Harvard. So, a pretty good scientist at that. But he has been putting out a bunch of tweets. And those tweets, to be honest, I'm going to be kind about and say that they're not thought through, rather than calling him names. However, you can go in the comments section and tell me exactly what you think about Neil deGrasse Tyson and all these tweets. The search for aliens on Earth has been crowdsourced for 3 billion internet-connected smartphones around the world. If our best evidence for aliens from another planet is monochromatic, low-resolution, fuzzy video taken by the US Navy, then there's more work to be done here. On the surface, he has a good point. The US Navy Tic Tac video is our best evidence, chances are, and it is a shame that it was taken with the technology it was, this FLIR technology that isn't designed for tracking and videoing UFOs in high definition. And he is right, we all have camcorders in our pockets now, so I would expect to see a lot more UFO evidence, but we don't get to see a great deal, even though there are hundreds of sightings constantly. Sadly, a lot of them are faked. And this is a real sadness that frustrates me every single day when I see so much UFO evidence that is just clearly CGI. My Facebook announcements today literally had 3 videos. One clearly fake, one possibly fake, and only one that was any of interest. So, even though he has a point, I'd argue that we have lots and lots of evidence for UFO encounters on Earth. Eyewitness testimonies should not be dismissed, even though debunkers seem to be very willing and very quick to dismiss them. And, we have lots of evidence that the US government is keeping away from us, including radar, satellite imagery, sonar of USOs, and so on, and so on. If you're new to the channel, please like, subscribe, and you can join the channel. You can help us to create more content. Please click that join button, click that like button, click that bell notification. Space aliens seeing humans kill over land, politics, religion, and resources would surely ask, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" After which they would return to their home planet, declaring there is no sign of intelligent life on Earth. A few of his tweets are about this, about humans killing each other and what aliens would think of us if they turned up. Now, to be honest, this tweet has got nothing to do with aliens. This tweet is about how he sees the human species and how we seem to be so willing to cause so much hate to each other. And again, he's got a point, but it's got nothing to do with aliens. I believe that if aliens did arrive on Earth tomorrow and did see the things that we do to each other, they wouldn't just see the hateful things. They would see the beauty as well. They would see the kindness. They would see the architecture. They would see the religion, the caring for our elderly. They would see so much that they might just go, you know what? Even though that species has problems and they're still young, there's something we can work with there. They've got potential. If a UFO beams you up, steal a gizmo from the alien's shelf when it's not looking. Bring that to a lab. You'll need it to supplement your eyewitness testimony. This is the first tweet that I'm going to say he hasn't thought through. For one, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that UFOs are psychic. So, from that point of view, you ain't stealing a gizmo off the shelf because they're reading your mind at the time. But even if they're not psychic, they're abducting humans on purpose. So they're prepared for it. At very least, they've got CCTV. More than that, you ain't stealing anything from that vehicle and bringing it back to substantiate your eyewitness report. Also though, lots of abductions do have physical evidence. There is evidence of implants. There is evidence of radiation burns. There is evidence of other injuries. There's evidence of lost time, and so on and so on. So to say this comment to me just belittles abduction victims. Now, I do argue that a lot of abduction victims are possibly mentally unwell. They weren't abducted by aliens. There was so many other things going on. But some abduction victims are victims, and this belittles them. Even if they weren't abducted by aliens, they believe they were. And maybe Tyson should think that these sort of tweets through, and maybe not belittle them in such an unkind way. Note Hollywood. No reason to think space aliens would have the same array of senses, sight, hearing, taste, touch, smell as humans. They could have more senses than we do, or all their senses could be completely different from ours. I go straight back to my previous point. Maybe they are psychic. In which case, you ain't stealing any gizmos, are you? See what I mean? Maybe think through what you're tweeting. How to turn most UFOs into IFOs. Take one course in stargazing, another in atmospheric phenomena, and a third in cognitive bias. I agree with 2/3 of this tweet. How to turn a UFO, an unidentified flying object, into an IFO, an identified flying object? Yeah, use your thinking brain. Actually think through what you're looking at. How many photos do we see now still on Facebook on a regular basis with the ... lights in the sky, which are those damn Elon Musk satellites? Anybody that's actually researching the subject knows that's happening a lot and should really be aware. Even though it's odd and what they're seeing is strange, we should really be aware of this by now. There are atmospheric things that happen that make lights bounce in strange ways. We do see planets and lights in the sky, and they're not unidentified flying objects, or at least they're not UFOs. The thing that annoys me a little bit is the cognitive bias part. Now, we all suffer from cognitive bias. I would argue here that Neil, I'm going to call him Neil, actually suffers from cognitive bias himself. A lot of his tweets really do show that a one-sided point of view, even if those points of view are sometimes trying to say something else, maybe a social commentary on mankind as a whole, rather than really talking about aliens. But he does have a cognitive bias. He calls himself a skeptic. This is a bit like Bill Nye the Science Guy, who proudly calls himself a skeptic. Now, don't get me wrong, we should all be skeptics. We should all be skeptical. But we should also be aware of our cognitive bias, but also be aware of what is actually possible and what isn't possible. So, when we're talking about could aliens be visiting the Earth? Of course they bloody could. Would they visit Earth? Of course they would. So, maybe don't dismiss something just because the evidence that we do have doesn't meet up to your standards. Or, more importantly, you dismiss evidence that would because of your cognitive bias. How egocentric of us to think that space aliens who have mastered interstellar travel across the galaxy would give a shit about humans on Earth. This is the one that annoys me, and he actually hasn't thought through. And this is the bit where I would like to call him names, but I'm not going to, mainly because YouTube won't let me. Censorship. But to talk about humanity's hubris and how egocentric we are to think that aliens would bother coming to see us, he hasn't thought that comment through. There's lots of reasons why alien species would be fascinated to come and speak to us on the Earth. For one, intelligent life might be incredibly rare, as in it might not fill the universe like on Star Trek, in which case, yes, of course an alien species would come here and would be interested. And that's not just intelligent life. Large animals, etc., might be quite rare in the universe. They might be just as interested in the lion as they are in humanity. So, from that point of view, yes, okay, maybe we're being egocentrical, thinking they're just coming here to help us. But maybe aliens are coming here because it's exactly what we would do. We explore the world. We have people that just want to go out there and see a new mountain because they want to see a new mountain. Alien species might not be that different to us. They might be explorers. They might also be here seeing what they can get for their own agendas, seeing what natural resources are available, and so on and so on. their agendas might simply be as simple as wanting to have a look. There are lots of theories that aliens are coming here after our DNA and so on and so on, and that is also, possible. But this comment basically, again, just dismisses and laughs at the UFO community, and actually kind of dismisses humanity, in that we're nothing special. We might be very, very special in the universe. We might be one of only a handful of species in our galaxy, in which case, of course, aliens would come here, and of course, they might also have an interest in our development. But, like Star Trek having its prime directive, they might not want to interfere. They might understand that actually interfering in a more primitive species can cause more harm than good. So that might be why they don't show themselves. My point here really is that this comment isn't thought through and is kind of stupid. Okay, well, we end on a joke, because to be fair to Neil deGrasse Tyson, he has a sense of humour. A lot of his tweets are a bit tongue-in-cheek. They're not to be taken too seriously. If you don't follow him on Twitter, I suggest you do. He tweets some amazing things. And while you're there, follow Brief Mysteries, because, we do too. See you next time, guys.